Everybody to session 18.5, our pre-session full house planning session. And we're going to talk a little bit about the direction the group wants to take before we start actual session 19. So with that, I will step back.
Whoa. All right. So I really liked, I think it was Avery, who, it might have been Robert though, who brought up the idea of having a pre session like planning group chat. And I feel like that's really good because I've been trying to figure out how to get into the groove of this campaign. Um, because it's so different from our other one. And I know we did that on purpose. Um, but I was thinking of some ways that it might help um, to help me at least to kind of talk over some of these points. So I feel like it does tie in with what happened last session and what's going right now. Cause I know we talked about how the last campaign, it was 3 years long um, in real time, not game time, but it was 3 years long. We were going through things that were spanning multiple planets, system wide events, um, and we felt like we wanted this to be the Firefly to that Serenity, and so the comment was made of it being more episodic and more about the personal character arc. The thing is, I think one of the reasons I keep Ben called it pining for New Horizons, which I was like, wow, okay. But anyway, um, the reason I keep thinking about our old campaign is because the character development that happened there that we all loved so much happened because of the events that caused it to happen with them together. And it also wasn't all of them coming in at once. It was sort of staggered. So there was a group dynamic that the new character would impact and then also be conformed to. Like when Brother Nick and Saoirse were introduced to the group, we were filling in a gap, but we also had, it changed the group dynamic. And then when Cade came, there hadn't been a sassy person that Saoirse had an aggressive relationship with until then. And then slash he was a good hacker. And then when Java came in, he was this big mystery and was the pilot. And he also, turned Brother Nick into this super protective character of Narrow. And so it just it was like an evolving dynamic. And thinking about how things are going right now, I don't think it feels true to my character for Cherry, and then also true to me, the player, to just be like, oh, we're just doing jobs, and that's all we want to do. And I feel like Ben has given us some different character arcs, and I know early on we felt like we were kind of shoved into the deep end with one of the character arcs. And that's when we kind of established, okay, I think what we realized is we don't want that. But I don't think that means that we can't carry carry a storyline longer than one episode. So here are Perry's 3 points, or my 3 points, for tying back into the AI here. Um, so one, the AI does not have to be Tabuk. It doesn't have to be, it does not have to be this huge year spanning, this is suddenly what our entire campaign is all about. But I do think that it, two, it ties into multiple character arcs for our people. So it ties into Pete's for sure, It ties
Yep.
into Cherries. It ties into Bo's and Bo's, hatred of robot kind and the stigma he has. And I think that it could even secondarily be tied into Zeke's and and then tertiarily to Eva because she's then trying to be a captain amongst all of that. But with Zeke, especially because like when Pete talked to the AI about the possibility of conscience transference, and basically the AI was like, well, it's not impossible, but it's incredibly taboo. Like people were talking about it, but it was
Yep.
not viewed well. And Zeke's whole backstory was pushing the envelope with psionic research and not being afraid of the taboo. So I feel like TC3 is overlapping, so is an opportunity to overlap so many character stories and their development um in like a carryable package. And I didn't intend that pun, but there it is.
Mm.
And I feel like if
Bravo.
we're wanting character, thank you. It worked out way better than I expected. Um, if we are wanting to focus on character growth, this is a really good opportunity for character growth. Um,
Yep.
and then just kind of going back to what I said about being thrown in the deep end with kind of that first plot hook with Mr. Gray. Um, this is a situation where I feel like we established in the situation with um, Mr. Gray and the nightclub being opened in an area where the guy felt like this is not good for this community and stuff. We're okay being hired hands, but we want to feel good about it. We want to be the good guys. I think knowing that this is a sentient being, Cherry is not going to feel good about that. Pete is not going to feel good about it. Eva's not going to feel good about it. At the very least, if it's like, yeah, okay, here you go, Miss Lloyd, just go sell it to whoever. I don't even think Bo's going to feel good about that because he doesn't trust an AI as far as he can toss it. And when it's a blue glowy rock, he could toss it pretty far. So just, I feel like it doesn't make sense for us to just be like, yeah, I don't know, let's finish the job and then move on because I want I agree like episodic, I agree character development, but the reason I loved the character development so much in New Horizons was because it was development that happened organically through trial. There were things that, bigger things that they were going through. They were essentially trauma bonded, okay? Like I'll put it out there. They were trauma bonded when you are with someone getting shot at, when you are bringing people back to life, whatever you want to say, like they became this ragtag misfit family because they went through the things they went through, which was this big, huge ordeal, system spanning ordeal. And so I'm not saying that this has to be a system spanning ordeal, but I think we've yet to see them go through anything that's bonded them. Um,
Well,
I don't even feel like I've really worked out a bond with Cherry and Zeke. Um, and so I'm feeling, I don't know, I just feel like I would like to see us latch on to something. And I think this is a really good opportunity of a something. Um, and go from there.
I have a couple of quick comments on that.
Sure, I'm gonna mute Mike though because the baby's starting to cry.
Okay. So Pete is going to care about the outcome of this situation, not from a this is a sentient being here, but from a this is my probably my only chance to actually know how I could get back to a body. Like the number of people who would know sector wide the way this AI does and would be willing to talk to him about it is gonna be like on one hand, easily countable. Um, so from his personal objectives, like he has strong reason to like stick his hand through the bars and say, if you promise to treat me with respect, I would like to see what you know about this. Like to just stick his hand through the bars and connect in that way. I don't think he would be fine with Carrie connecting with it. I think he would rather share his body with the AI, honestly. Um, but I do agree that this is an opportunity for character growth, and I think there's a lot more here that we can have our characters grow from with keeping or doing something different with the AI than with just turning it over to Miss Lloyd. That's my thought.
I really think that something Cherry would be interested in would be the possibility of trying to convince Sarah that, hey, you know what, who would pay the most for this AI? The AI that run Lohenu Da. Because it says it knows one of them, whether it's because, they need more AI or because it's altruistic reasons or, whatever reasons, we could take this thing to Lohenu Da and get reimbursed probably way more handsomely than your single benefactor could.
I think it's worth bringing up to them.
I definitely hadn't considered the transfer of consciousness as something that was like potentially psionically valuable to Zeke. So thank you for bringing that up. I think one thing that would kind of help, and I see how Pete's character, it's a little bit more clear to me now, but maybe not for others, is just generally a sense of like where you envision, where everyone envisions their character being at the end of the day. Like, what is their ultimate goal? Like, for me personally, I feel like I know what that is for Zeke, but I don't know that I do for everyone else. And maybe that's just a me thing. I mean,
Well, and that's what makes it hard to try and say the point is character growth because, like, in the past, the point was we had like very, not always very clear, but like an overall clear objective, and the character growth happened organically around that. But to say, I want to see character growth, um, and that be the main focus when we're not maybe even sure what that would entail, um, I think it's harder to kind of plan a campaign around that. But like
Probably.
for Cherry, she wanted to do something that mattered with her life, and she wanted to be taken seriously. And so she's not searching for a life wandering, selling badgers, and um, getting one over on politicians to open nightclubs. Like, she wants to do things that matter, or at least cover stories about things that matter to try and make a difference. And so I thought that that wouldn't be too terribly hard because of everything that happened in the last campaign. I was like, there's got to be tons of opportunity for her in her journalistic endeavors, whatever, to cover that. Um, but yeah, I think it's also going to be a matter for her of she's had a whole life of cultivating a persona that she kind of has to hide behind, and the idea of who is the real Cherry and what is the persona. So I guess just like personal development, but also development as a professional in her field, um, that she can then use to further good things with.
do you have a feeling of like, so you say want to further things like specifically anything that she might be a major proponent for, or is it just generally wanting to make a positive impact on the world without any sort
So
of
I
clear
think like
leadership?
the big thing for her was that they were finally getting word in Lohenu Da of what was happening on Urala from Tabuk, and she was wanting to um she was wanting to cover it, she was wanting to talk about it, but her manager was like essentially just like, no, shut up, go do another, lip gloss video. And she basically had a moment of going, nope, that's enough for me. I'm doing this on my own now, and I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. And so she left because she wanted to. It just was kind of a wake up call for her of like, oh, wow, like not everything is, what's happening in this bubble on Lohenu Da. Like there's stuff going on outside of this planet that's real, like problematic and needs attention, but nobody's talking about it, um kind of thing. So I guess like just she has a platform, and so she's like, well, if I can talk about, you know a type of makeup and get people to go buy this makeup, or if I can play a game and get people to go buy this game, then why couldn't I cover something that needs people's attention and get people to help with that situation, or basically semi social justice, but more that like she's tired of the ephemeral and she's tired of the shallow, and she's seeing real journalists out there covering real things, and doing good, and that's what she wants substance and to be taken seriously, and she hasn't had that in her life.
Does she still want to find herself in front of the camera, you think, like as
I
she's achieving those goals?
I think she does, just because that's what she's used to doing. Um, and she feels like that it would be foolish to neglect, that asset of like she has those skills, she has that fan base that she's working from, and it's like, well, at this point, she might at one point like later in her life, like a lot of um people on her planet do, they kind of like transition away from being in front of the camera and do other things, but yeah, I think right now she's still um wanting to be basically like a reporter.
That's
But
actually like a perfect segue into my last question about Cherry.
mhm.
Like at the end of the day, does her end goal align more with like being that like reporter, like news anchor, I don't know, like category, or like is it more political and like wanting to sort of like guide the people in that way, or more of like make sure the people are armed with information?
I think it's more the second. I think it's more the second, but she would obviously, with personal bias, be going, "Oh, well, this is something good." So, or this is something that needs good people to know about it, kind of thing. I mean, I didn't think that would be like a very difficult character arc because of everything that happened in the last campaign. I was like, "Oh, there's gonna be like some corruption in like the Uralin relief effort, or like, there will be something really, you know, small peanuts that she can cover and be like, I did it." So I wasn't expecting it to be like a big ask, you know. It's not like I want to find a human body to get my spirit back into. So I was kind of going for like supporting cast member with her backstory, I'm gonna be honest. Um, but when it comes to like the crew's dynamic, I do think it is important to note that like she's not gonna be content to just spin her wheels
Yeah.
forever.
Well, for that matter, I think maybe we had it backwards that she wasn't supporting character, that she was front and center, and we maybe perhaps should have kept the two groups separate, with Eva, Pete, and Bo being ship crew, and Cherry and Zeke being their passengers. The dynamic being that Eva keeps trying to find jobs, but there they are. Cherry, always reliable, always with a job. Um, Instead of trying to, we kind of ham-fisted Cherry and Zeke becoming crew. Is I think what I'm getting at, and it probably would have worked better if we had left them there so that Cherry could then be going and pursuing these things and looking over at Eva like, well, it's she's a cheap transportation. Let's go, cheaper and reliable.
Yeah, I just don't know if Ben would have wanted to supply me with like Daddy Warbucks levels of money to be able to be like outfitting
I don't think
the
it would have needed.
pipeline.
I don't think it would have needed anything like that. It perhaps could have even been a greater source of tension that she doesn't have that money, and that's why she's booking transit on this ship that when you drill apparently shows you after images and pre-images of the ship.
Oh my.
I mean, I see it kind of like working off. I mean,
Richard
working
Prince.
off the debt that you may have incurred in, being a passenger on this ship to maybe get involved in more of the things that the party's overall getting involved in.
Yeah, Richard Prince.
But
I know.
I know you said that it doesn't have to be a campaign spanning thing. And you're right. Their adventures can be longer than a few sessions. They can certainly have a lot more impact than just job starts, job is ongoing, job ends. And I don't think I necessarily would have wanted that back to back, because that does get a little bit old and repetitive. But I will say that the one that you've picked up on feels much bigger than just a
Yeah.
small job. And I also think it's getting a little bit ahead. I think maybe we could probably we might be able to convince Lloyd to sell to Lohenuda. I don't think she's going to let us take it. We might be able to convince her to let us take her there. That's
Oh
also
yeah, for sure. I didn't think she was gonna let TC3 out of her sight.
nah, yeah.
Probably not.
Also, from a meta perspective, Robert,
Uh-huh.
I feel like it would just be almost headache inducingly impossible for Ben to DM the consciousness of an AI being ported into your robot body
Probably.
versus it being put into Carrie, which was what was suggested.
The difference is
Oh,
being
no, it'd
able
be-
to just have, I'll say, the ability to ask a question, but also not trusting Lloyd. Go ahead, Ben.
No, it'd be super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
You just say, you die.
Yeah, Robert, give me your character sheet. Pete's now an NPC.
There's a lot of historical in that way, if that's what it would be intended for.
Oh, what was that?
What'd you say?
If it's just like a second voice in Pete's head, it feels a lot like Oracle if we're just gonna ask it questions.
Right. I'm just saying in that case, that's what Pete would be thinking. He's not particularly sophisticated. It would be more like, this is my best chance of ever getting back to a body. I need to keep it close. It's more about the security and less about the practicality, to be fair.
No, I mean, because maybe the AI wants to get back into a body too, right? It might be an advantage to having it in your head.
Yeah.
like fast track your physical space to that happening. Surely there are consequences.
Nah, I'm sure
Definitely
there
no
aren't any.
consequences.
Yeah, I
Been
think
stopped
Ben
from
already
happening.
agreed on that. Right? No consequences for any of our actions. Yeah, his silence is agreement.
I mean, to
I
be
guess
fair, from the inspiration perspective, we talked about this campaign as being like a smaller scale Firefly-esque type of campaign. To be fair, though, the Firefly campaign and story never was just local. It started local because it was post the previous campaign concluding. These characters were the ones who were left over fallout of the previous campaign. And had there been a second season, third season, it would have gone bigger. Like, of course it would have.
well,
And
and they even had like River,
yep,
like, they picked
exactly.
up a guy with a box thinking it's just a guy with a box, and then, oh, actually, no, this is your sister. You busted her out of a high security place and now you're super wanted. So now we
Exactly.
have this overarching, like, we're still picking up jobs, but there's
But
also
some of
this
the
other
fun
plot.
too is that we're trying to ignore the global plot while we're just trying to, be us and have our freedom and
Right.
independence. That's what I
But
feel like is part of that feel.
But the thing is, they were, like you said, left over from the previous campaign. They were
Uh-huh.
hardened. They had reasons for being that way.
Yes.
Almost every single one of us, like, yeah, we have individual trauma. No one, like, no happy person says, I'm going to go adventure in the stars. So, like, they have baggage, but they're not hardened. They're all fresh faces. Like, they're not the kind of people who would go, oh, I'm just going to not try to make a difference.
So like Kaylee.
Whereas Mal and Wash and Zoe and even oh my word, how did I forget his name? Um
Jane.
anyway, all
Yeah,
of
Jane.
them except for Kaylee, essentially, of the original crew, all of them had reason to be really jaded because they had tried to make a big difference and then it didn't work. But our crew doesn't have that. And so I don't feel like it makes sense for us to just be like, whoop, nope,
I
we're just
think that's
gonna go
making
transport some more badgers.
not to get into the analogy too much, but I do think that that's making more of the characters than actually was there. It really was just Mal and Zoe that had the beef from the original crew.
Yeah.
Wash, not really. Jane was just a scoundrel.
Yeah.
And Shepard, we never knew his backstory, but there was something there. We knew that much.
Hmm.
But they were a very mixed group in that sense. Mal was on the I'm a low level character level by being bitter and resigned about circumstances, about losing the war.
Hmm.
So they're closer to us than I think they appear in memory.
I feel like, though, even if it is just Zoe and Mal that you would say were really jaded, or Mal and Zoe was the one who was with him in the war,
Mhm.
and that Jane was just a scoundrel, that's still three out of how many people that were really just out for themselves versus trying to make an impact on the world around them.
Yeah, I don't like I said, don't want to get into the analogy too much. The analogy is fine as an example of mindset, but analogies always fail at arguments. So
Yeah, and I will be first to say I have not watched Firefly in a long time. It was one of my favorite shows, but it's been a while.
yeah,
I just think that, like, the other thing is, like, I also feel like I appreciate whoever came up with the analogy to start with. Might have been me, I don't know, but it has also felt super limiting, um, because we keep going back to it, trying to figure out what this campaign is supposed to be, and it's like, well, we're not, Eva's not Mal.
Nope.
Pete is definitely not Zoe. Like it's like it's not it is
He can
it
be
is a
true.
very different crew. It's it's just hard to try and conform it into a box. And
Yeah.
I think I just really miss the things happen, and now how would our characters figure this out together? And
And I've got
I
other.
feel I feel like there's opportunity for that with this crew, but I haven't really seen it yet, and that's, I don't know. I'm just, I guess, maybe too anxious to see it.
Yeah, I was going to comment in agreement with part of what you're saying about the Firefly analogy. I think it was useful in the beginning to have an idea of, hey, this is kind of the feel, the general scale and balance of time and level of commitment to different places, that sort of thing that we want. But I think I think we're probably at the point where we can let it rest and you know focus on how to tweak what we've got. And because I think, like you said, the more episodic, small scale uh, concept where you're a little bit more you're more independent. You're not getting tangled up in or tied down to any one location or government or any one huge cause. I think that feel is very manageable and very doable without getting too caught up in any other little minutia of the analogy kind of. And I think while kind of adapting to what characters you guys have and trying to focus on what do these characters want to do, and because it's not like at a fundamental level I don't think the game has changed. And there's one thing I wanted to say that my impression was that I thought my GMing style, and I still think this, though I'm trying to pay attention and I'm open to being proven wrong. My tendency to want to like put hooks around and have interesting things that might lead into more than just the surface level, little quick job kind of stuff. Um, I think that's I think that's perfectly compatible with what you guys are looking for, if I understand it correctly. It's just a matter of, as players, trying to find the balance between, you know, pursuing, events and characters and locations that are interesting to you without getting bogged down to the point that, okay, well, now we're embroiled in this civil war and,
I love
we're
a
going
good
to be here for
embroiling.
a year or whatever. But it also may be that there is more to it than just what I've described as far as the what people envisioned for the game, and so that may be worth hashing out some more or clarifying.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that the Firefly idea was a good place to start a campaign, and I don't know that it was ever intended by any of us to be the lasting feel of the campaign. I
Mm,
think we just wanted to lean into something less grand scale
yeah.
and more space opera like. And when you're embroiled in galaxy wide conflict, it's hard to kind of get the space opera light feel that things can
Mm,
have. And so I think it's fair to say that, hey, if we find something and we say, hey, I like this hook, let's run with it, guys. Let's find that unity. Let's find that um direction and problem solving for our characters. Because we're gonna get there. Because that's just us as players. We're gonna get there. Um But yeah, let's maybe not paint ourselves into just that corner.
I agree.
Yeah, I like that.
We hadn't really heard from Ethan though. Did you have any thoughts, Ethan?
Ethan is expressly forbidden from having thoughts in this venue.
Crap.
Those are too dangerous.
Oh, sorry. Taking notes. So, kind of on that.
Been doing a good job for the most part.
Oh, I guess. Kind of still. Echoing. There we go.
Avery's,
It's
yeah.
basically that my thoughts are still kind of like in the out of character planning, where I figured we could sort of have a mix of things. You know, characters will have, like I said, hooks that'll pull their particular backstory and motivations out. We'll have the plot find us at times, whether that's from things we've already set in motion, or fallout from the previous campaign, or the like, and then odd kind of jobs mixed in between. I guess it was kind of where I thought we were going. I figured this was all laying some groundwork for hooks we'd want to pursue more, or Mr. Gray coming back with his army of AI badgers or whatever. And I guess also, and I agree on like it'd be nice to pull out some of those things to get the characters to gel and really figure out their interactions and connections like the previous group. I guess also that I think we had to give it a little time, because it was like I said, we had like 3 years of playing them.
Yep.
And it was probably a year or so for that initial group of kind of gelling, and then a little while of figuring out each new character, kind of getting their relationship in the group. And we're, I guess, 19 sessions in, so I guess like, while we want to get to the good part, I guess that's kind of, it does take a little bit to like build up the relationships and stuff. But maybe Ben can just throw us in a trauma meat grinder that will bond us all together.
Trauma
or
meat
TPKS.
Trauma meat grinder. Noted. As requested specifically by the party. My hands are clean.
Great.
You have babies.
Yeah.
Your hands are never clean.
Gross.
Actually, how am I trying to say it? Contrary to what you might suspect, it's more the opposite, because I wash my hands a lot more frequently than I would otherwise.
Amen.
There have been times where I've been like, man, this is like the 7th time, and it's not even halfway through the day.
So what are you what are you asking for to change? Like I've heard seriously about like how this is different from Firefly and isn't really measuring up to the last campaign. Poor way of phrasing that, but on the spot. But I'm not really sure what kind of changes you want to see. Is it just to pursue this particular AI arc? Is that what you're asking?
I think that's the first step. I think the other steps are that I want there to be a bigger story. Um, and it doesn't have to be system wide. I just want it to be something more than what we've been doing. So, so if that's even just a matter of, hey, crew, Zeke here. I have this thing I want to go do. Can we go do it? There might be workout that way. Sure, Zeke, let's do that. I don't,
You're saying
or
some.
hey crew, the AI told me about this sweet place where I can go get a human body. Let's go do that. And I'll go, cool, grave robbing planet. Let's go.
So
So
those
by
are
bigger,
two very
So,
different things. One is very specific to the character. The other was just kind of sounds like a job.
which one sounds like which?
Well, the AI body sounds very specific to a character.
Well, the thing for Zeke is I just don't know what his goal is. All I know is he's super
Okay, so you were trying
into.
you were trying to give examples of things that are specific to characters. Got it.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just
so
sick and sleep deprived and not good at it.
so
Fair
by
enough.
big story, by saying you want a bigger story than just what we've done so far, what you mean is you want what the characters get up to be more meaningful to the characters and not just, let's just take a job that looks like it'll pay out some money but try to, obviously make money to pay the bills, but also pursue something more meaningful for the characters.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing to me is in the other campaign we were pursuing something that was meaningful because it affected a lot of people. In this campaign, we don't want to do something that's just like superhero levels, but it still needs to be like stories to me are the most enjoyable when there is deeper meaning in them, or like we've talked about character development, just plain and simple. Um and I feel like it will be most meaningful if the jobs we're doing are helping to lead us closer to those character goals. Yeah, that sounds good, Ben.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I've been
Yeah,
on
I
mute
hear
because
you.
I cannot. Sorry.
Good. Yeah, it's kind of sounding like there's not like any major change, not like there's necessarily been anything wrong with what has been done so far, but just that you're not that Danielle's point is not wanting to just continue in that vein long term, and that you see pursuing the AI beyond just, okay, we did the job for Miss Lloyd, get her payday and move on. You see that as an opportunity to explore character arcs and go for something more meaningful that also lets you guys be the good guys and have a positive impact that way. Anybody else have any comments or contributions to any of that?
Yeah. Not really.
Okay.
I guess that some of the character stuff might be less, I don't know, actively pursued. I guess it depends on the PCs, how many of them are self-motivated to be like, I'm going to go deal with the big things in my backstory, as opposed to some, like, I don't think Bo, at least where he's at right now, is actively going to be like, man, I had traumatic events in my past that have led me to act out in ways that are harmful to those around me. I should probably go deal with that. I think he's going to have that message forced upon him by external events.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's worth noting, because you bring up a really good point, Ethan, that for Eva, this is her working out those past problems.
So yeah, then I guess all of it for her is kind of whatever we're doing is her therapy.
Yeah, and it just being a successful ship captain, making a profit, doing something right when nobody else really believed in her.
Yeah, so there probably are some characters who are, like you said, they're going to be more along for the ride. So if somebody's like, I'm going to go, or I want us to go deal with my backstory, they'll be along for it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be like, hey, we found a really lucrative job or whatever. Hauling badgers again.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we're probably running that gamut of self-motivated characters to characters that might need, NPCs from their tragic backstory, or events to catch up with them to maybe motivate that kind of movement on their backstory versus characters who are just happy to be here.
Mm-hmm. All
Well,
right.
did we want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we're pretty good.
Apologies for yelling at you all into the void.
I think
No
it
worries.
was valuable to get that that conversation out there and kind of on the record. Make sure everybody's voicing where they see the game going and where they want to see it going, and just trying to get a little bit more aligned. So, all right, I guess with that we can go ahead